The scent of roasted chicken and warm bread filled the dining room, but it did nothing to ease the knot tightening in her stomach. She sat upright, hands clasped tightly in her lap, trying to steady her excitement. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration. Her promotion had finally come through, a recognition of years of dedication, late nights, and relentless effort. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, seeing her parents' faces light up with pride. "I got the promotion," she announced, her voice trembling slightly with anticipation. "I'm now the project lead for the entire department. It's really important." For a heartbeat, there was silence. The sound of her father's fork clinking against his plate was deafening in that quiet. Then, with an almost theatrical sigh, her mother set down her wine glass. "Your promotion doesn't count," her mother said, her tone sharp, dismissive. "You just got lucky. Anyone could have been in the right place at the right time." She blinked, startled. The words landed like stones in her chest, heavy and cold. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, her father leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "Don't get too excited," he added, his voice measured but cutting. "You've had opportunities that most people would kill for. It's not just talent, it's timing. Don't fool yourself." The celebration she had imagined evaporated in a swirl of disappointment and anger. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to tell them that every late night, every skipped weekend, every moment she had sacrificed had led to this exact recognition. But the words caught in her throat. So she said nothing. She forced a tight-lipped smile, nodded, and ate her dinner in silence, tasting nothing. The humiliation and frustration twisted inside her like a living thing, wriggling in her chest, making her feel smaller than she had ever felt before. She excused herself after dinner, retreating to her room where the walls could at least keep her secret. She sat on the edge of her bed, heart pounding, trying to make sense of the storm of emotions inside her. Years of subtle dismissals, of quiet skepticism and harsh judgments, replayed in her mind: the time she won the science fair and her mother shrugged, the time she got the lead role in the school play and her father said, "It's just a school play, don't get carried away." Something inside her shifted. Not anger, not despair, something quieter, colder, more deliberate. She realized that she didn't need their validation. Not anymore. If they couldn't see her worth, she would show them anyway. But she would do it her way, without confrontation, without begging for approval. She would let success speak in a language they could not ignore. Her phone buzzed. A message from her boss: "Congratulations again. You've earned this. Let's meet tomorrow to discuss the next steps." A small smile tugged at her lips. The first spark of determination flickered, growing warmer. They may have doubted her tonight, but tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after that, would be hers to command. And one day, she thought quietly, they would walk into her world and finally understand what she had built for herself. The hum of fluorescent lights and the steady click of keyboards became her new rhythm. At work, she was no longer the uncertain girl who had sat silently at the family dinner table, trying to hide her frustration. Here, her skills spoke for her, her ideas were sharp, her decisions precise, and her dedication unmatched. She stayed late, long after most colleagues had left, not out of obligation, but out of a fierce drive to prove, to herself and, secretly, to the ones who doubted her, that she was capable. Each project she led was a silent rebellion. Every successful campaign, every problem solved under her guidance, felt like a quiet message she could not yet deliver to her parents: "I am more than your dismissive words. I am unstoppable." Her desk became a testament to her determination, littered with notebooks full of strategies, proposals, and ideas, each one carefully crafted and perfected. Yet, even as she thrived professionally, the echoes of her parents' skepticism lingered. Their calls were routine now. Her mother's thinly veiled critiques about her appearance, her father's reminders of how easy her success was. Sometimes she wanted to answer with the sharp retorts that burned inside her, but she held herself back. Each time she resisted the urge to fight back, she felt herself growing stronger, more in control. She realized that patience could be more powerful than anger. At work, she began to notice the respect of her peers and mentors. A senior manager who had once doubted her capabilities now sought her advice on high-stakes projects. Her mentor, a seasoned executive, began to include her in leadership meetings, praising her insight and her ability to navigate complex challenges. These moments, small though they might seem to outsiders, filled her with a quiet, unwavering confidence. She was finally seeing herself the way others did, capable, intelligent, and deserving. Flashbacks of childhood lingered in the edges of her mind, the countless times her achievements had been minimized, the subtle messages that she was never quite enough. But those memories no longer weighed her down, they fueled her. She poured herself into her work, into her skills, and into building a future where validation came from results, not approval. Months passed, each one a careful stitch in the tapestry of her success. She networked, learned the intricacies of her company's politics, and positioned herself where opportunities would find her. The possibility of promotion, of real recognition, no longer felt like a distant dream but a tangible goal within her grasp. One evening, as she reviewed the final draft of a critical proposal, her phone buzzed with an email notification. She opened it, holding her breath. The subject line read, "Executive Opportunity, Department Lead Position." Her heart leapt. This was the role that could finally cement her independence, the role that could put her name in a place no one could ignore. Sitting back in her chair, she allowed herself a small, private smile. For the first time in years, she didn't feel small, overlooked, or dismissed. The long grind, the quiet sacrifices, the resilience in the face of doubt, it had all brought her here. And soon, she thought, the world, and perhaps even her parents, would have no choice but to see her for what she truly was. By the time the executive opportunity came into view, she had learned the art of patience. It was not the kind born of boredom or passivity, it was deliberate, careful, almost surgical. Every move she made was calculated, every word chosen with precision. The months of relentless work had taught her that true power was not in shouting the loudest but in letting results speak louder than words ever could. She began by mastering the intricacies of office politics. Meetings were no longer merely a formality, they became her stage. She listened, observed, and absorbed every nuance, the alliances, the tensions, the unspoken hierarchies. She noticed who undervalued her peers, who could be allies, and who would attempt to undermine her. Every interaction was a piece in the grand puzzle she was assembling, a puzzle that would one day reveal her dominance not through confrontation, but through undeniable accomplishment. Meanwhile, her parents remained consistent in their dismissal, sending texts that dripped with thinly veiled sarcasm. "Are you really working that hard again? Or, don't let it get to your head." She read each one and smiled quietly, a small, private satisfaction blooming in her chest. She knew she could respond, could argue, could demand recognition, but she understood now that real vindication did not require anger. It required endurance, skill, and timing. At work, she began taking on the high-stakes projects that others avoided, quietly becoming indispensable. She learned to anticipate problems before they arose, to propose solutions that no one else had imagined. Colleagues who had once doubted her now sought her insight, while supervisors increasingly relied on her judgment for decisions that affected the company at large. Every success was a silent message to the ones who doubted her, a whisper that her worth could not be minimized. Evenings were filled with planning, not spreadsheets or reports, but her own trajectory. She set goals, plotted milestones, and envisioned the moment when she would finally stand unshakable, with achievements that could not be dismissed. There was no malice in her planning, only focus, a determination to build a life that would command respect by virtue of its substance. And yet, there were moments of temptation, moments when the fire of anger flickered within her. The voice of her mother, the judgment of her father, the dismissals of years past, they all lingered, whispering that she should confront, that she should demand recognition. But she resisted. Each time she held back, the sense of power within her grew. She realized that revenge was sweeter not when shouted, but when undeniable. Weeks passed, and her opportunity drew nearer. She secured endorsements from influential figures, built her team's loyalty, and polished her portfolio until it shone. Each step was deliberate, each decision carefully calculated, a testament to her mastery over patience and strategy. Finally, the moment arrived. The promotion board had made their decision. She had earned the position of executive director, a role that would not only recognize her talent but place her name on the office door, a symbol of authority and achievement. The anticipation swelled within her, not as impatience, but as a steady, confident certainty that her long game had succeeded. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet thrill ran through her veins. Soon, very soon, the people who had doubted her would see what she had always known: she was more than luck. She was excellence, patience, and resolve incarnate, and her triumph would leave no room for denial. The office smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh coffee, a quiet hum of productivity filling the space. She stepped in, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor, and for the first time, she felt the full weight of her own achievement settle around her like armor. The brass nameplate on the glass door gleamed in the morning light, her name, Executive Director. 3 simple words, yet they carried years of struggle, doubt, and silent perseverance. She was just reviewing a quarterly report when the knock came. A familiar voice, hesitant, unsure, called from the doorway, "Can we come in?" Her parents stood there, framed awkwardly by the doorway. Their expressions wavered between pride and disbelief, but they quickly masked it with casual curiosity. Her mother's eyes flicked to the nameplate, her lips pressed into a thin line. Her father's brow furrowed, and for a split second, she caught a hint of something she had never seen before: uncertainty. "Of course," she said, her voice calm, even, betraying none of the emotion swirling inside her. She gestured to the chairs around her sleek, glass conference table. "Please, have a seat." They sat, shifting uncomfortably. The room, once a space they could have walked into and dismissed her as lucky, now belonged unmistakably to her. She allowed herself a moment to savor the quiet power in that realization. We just wanted to see where you work now," her mother said, trying to sound casual, but the words stumbled. She smiled politely. "This is my office," she replied, gesturing around. "I lead a team of 50 people, and we're responsible for projects that affect the company on a national scale." She let the weight of her words sink in, watching the flicker of surprise in their eyes. Her father cleared his throat. "We didn't realize it would be this," he trailed off, unable to articulate the mix of pride and shock. She leaned back, folding her hands in her lap. "I've worked hard for this. Late nights, careful planning, learning from every mistake, I've earned it. This promotion isn't luck. It's years of dedication and perseverance." Her tone was firm, not accusatory, but undeniable. She let her eyes meet theirs, steady and unwavering. Her mother opened her mouth, then closed it, perhaps realizing there was nothing left to say. Her father shifted in his seat, his usual confidence diminished, replaced by a hesitant admiration she had never witnessed. For a moment, the silence was complete. And in that silence, she felt something profound: she had won, not through anger, not through confrontation, but by living fully, relentlessly, authentically. She had built a life they could no longer diminish, a life that demanded recognition simply because it existed. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer now. "I hope one day you understand that my worth wasn't defined by your approval. It was always in me. And now, it's undeniable." Her parents rose, murmuring polite congratulations that felt hollow, but she didn't need more. She walked them to the door, her head held high, her heart steady. Once they left, closing the office door behind them, she stood in the quiet space and let herself exhale. The name on the door wasn't just a title. It was proof. Proof that she had endured, grown, and triumphed. And in that quiet, commanding victory, she understood a truth she had always known: real revenge is living so fully that those who doubted you cannot ignore the brilliance you create.